we are live.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Greg Waite, and I'm president of the Washington Internship Institute. And I'm very pleased to be joined by some of our alumni from the program. I'm going to start off by just having them introduce themselves, and you can then ask them questions through the chat about their experiences. So I'm going to start in my screen at top left with Georgia McKee from Belmont University.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Georgia. I go to Belmont. I'm a junior faith and social justice major. I'm currently in my parents' house, and I normally would be playing softball for Belmont.
Whoever wants to go next.
Hi, my name is Sophia Gottlieb. I'm a current junior political science major at Gustavus Adolphus College in St. Peter, Minnesota. And I interned last summer through WII at the National Archives in DC. And right now I'm also at my parents' home. I just got back from studying abroad in Galway, Ireland.
Don, you want to go?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Don Crawford. I'm a 2016 alumni of the Washington Internship Institute. I'm an alumni of Duquesne University in Pittsburgh. Currently, I am about 4 weeks away from finishing law school. When I was a participant in the Washington Internship Institute, I was an intern at the U.S. Department of Treasury.
Chelsea?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Chelsea Thomas. I graduated from Ursinus College in Collegeville, Pennsylvania. I'm currently in my first year of grad school with Arizona State University studying global security. In undergrad, I studied political science and international relations. And while I was interning with WII, I actually interned at the National Immigration Forum.
Who hasn't gone yet?
Me, I'll go.
Okay, Brittany.
Hi, I'm Brittany Damaris. I'm currently a senior at Roger Williams University, and I'm majoring in criminal justice. And I did the program in fall 2018, and I interned at the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Hi, I'm Sarah Snyder. I'm a senior at St. Francis University, which is in Loretto, Pennsylvania. I'm majoring in history pre-law. I interned in fall of 2018, and I was with RAIN, which is Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network. And right now I'm in my parents' home working remotely for them. So.
Awesome. All right, well, thanks again to all of our alumni who are participating. So I will kick things off with sort of just a general question about what made you guys decide to want to come to DC for a semester to try this out.
I think for me, I always wanted to study abroad, but then when I started looking into it, I got really nervous and I wasn't sure if I would be able to be in a different country for a whole semester. And then kind of through doing research on what kind of study away programs my school offers, I came across the Washington Internship Institute. And so I thought that would be more manageable for me just to go to DC. And I've always been interested in living in a city because I'm from a small town and stuff. And it just seemed like a really fun experience.
Cool.
I think my reasoning was pretty similar. I was thinking about studying abroad at the time, but thought that DC would be kind of a good first step. And I had been to the area a couple of times when I was younger, and I just remembered how dynamic and exciting the city was. There's just so much going on and so many young professionals who are equally as driven and passionate about what they're doing. So that's what I remember thinking about when I was considering WII.
Anybody else want to respond?
Yeah.
Sure. No, go ahead.
Yeah, when I came, I mentioned I was studying political science at Duquesne University. So I was a Politico at the time, and DC always seemed like an exciting place, and the Hill was there, and the White House was there, and the city seemed like it functions around politics. So I really wanted to go to DC to be able to experience that hands-on as a poli-sci student. Also, the year I was in DC in 2016, it was an election year. So there were a lot of things going on. There was always something to do. You could always watch debate watch parties. So I really just wanted to go to DC to continue to soak up all of the political science knowledge I could from the nation's capital. So that was primarily my motivation.
Chelsea, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. You know, I was studying political science. DC's the hub of politics. I was really interested in the policy making side and like what better place to go. During my internship time was actually the same time as the Kavanaugh trials. So I kind of got to see everything firsthand. And my boss was really, really cool about letting us, you know, go and actually see them in person if we wanted to. So we kind of got to see like all the protests and everything that was going on. Our office was like a block or two from the White House. So everything that was happening like in real time. You're really in the middle of everything. And that was the coolest part for me.
Cool. So one thing that we try to describe to students is how we help students find the internships. So can you guys talk about what your experience was like with our staff in helping you find an internship here?
Yeah, the staff was fantastic. And for me, I went into the program not really knowing what I wanted to do, and I didn't really have an interest in politics or policy. I just really wanted to be in DC and be in a city. And so the staff at WII would call me and ask what I was interested in, like why I was interested in it. And then they would send me a long list of places that they thought I would fit best in. It's just really great communication and really geared towards me as an individual and like where I could want to go and different organizations that I'd be interested in.
Mm-hmm. And I remember I worked with Kate, just really fantastic help with writing and creating like CVs, resumes. I remember doing a couple of interview practices, so really practical, helpful steps towards finding an internship.
Yeah, I remember being really impressed by how fast you guys would reply to us. So I had Sarah for my internship coordinator, and when I was like applying to different places, I was really stressed out. And whenever I would like have a question or like kind of like freak out about something, and I would send her an email, she'd get back right away, and it was just really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, when I tried to apply for internships, I really wanted to do something in law and like the legal aspect. But then Kate, kind of like she asked me what my more interests were, and I'm really interested in domestic violence and sexual assault. So then we kind of looked towards that, and that's how I ended up at Rain.
And I agree with everybody. I thought that the staff at WII was extremely hands-on and even sending you opportunities. And I remember, you know, trying to figure out what my interests were, where actually I wanted to intern at. And so they really help you walk through, you know, step one to not only figuring out what your interests are, but all the way to the end to landing that job that you want, landing that internship that you want in the field you want. And I think that was the case for me, and it was also the case for my cohort. Everybody seemed really happy at the locations that they were interning at, and I think that is largely credited towards the staff who helped us find the positions.
So another question that I get a lot when I'm talking with students is, well, what will I be doing? And that's a really hard question for me to answer because A, I'm not an intern, and B, all of us do, all the interns do really wide-ranging things at their internship. So can maybe each of you give an example of the kind of work that you did in your internship, just to give students out there a sense of the kinds of things that you might be able to do?
Yes. So I know for me during my internship, one of the things that I got to do, which was really important and like still to this day, I'm so thankful for, was we actually got to, so the company that I worked with, the National Immigration Forum, is a really small nonprofit, and a lot of what they do is provide classes, citizenship classes, they call them, to migrant workers in different areas of DC. So they kind of walk them through the citizenship process and the application and set them up with lawyers so that they can actually sit through and go through the application. And on top of actually getting to sit and be hands-on in those classes, they actually like let us like talk to some of the people that were there. So you're getting to hear these stories of these people who are leaving their homes, you know, and it could have been like the year before that they just left their home, and they're telling you all these incredible things and like about their kids and what they're doing now, especially at American University. They were so sweet and so welcoming. And that kind of helped me really see the human side of immigration policy too. And I think that's something that I still apply even now to any aspect that I'm doing regarding like immigration policy research. So that was definitely a really cool experience for me.
Brittany, how about you?
So at the U.S. Attorney's Office, going into it, I really had no idea what they expected me to do. And I was really surprised by how much they allowed me to do. So, like on a normal day, I would go to court in the morning with some of the attorneys, or if they needed like the court schedule or like evidence or something, I would like bring that for them. And then they let me like write up transcripts that they ended up presenting in court, which I thought was really cool that they like gave me that responsibility because I wasn't expecting it at first. And I really liked how I kind of knew what I was going to be doing every day, but every day was different because they would be dealing with different cases.
Sophia, do you want to go?
Sure. So yeah, at the National Archives, I worked in the Education and Public Programs Center. And so a lot of what I did was developing and implementing programming for visitors. And so I did a lot of programming geared towards younger audiences, so kids from the ages of like 3 to 5. And I've worked a little bit with kids. I was a swimming instructor in high school, but I had never put together like lesson plans and hands-on activities that utilized like historical documents before. So I loved it. I loved developing programming, and I loved that we had so many opportunities to also just interact with members of the public. We did a lot of family days and a lot of panels with authors and historians. So yeah, it was the best experience.
And I know that Georgia worked on fundraising because I went to one of her fundraisers. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I worked at a nonprofit, SOS Children's Villages, and I was in charge of creating a campaign for the whole summer. And so I got to work with the staff of the nonprofit and totally came up with a campaign of my own, put together a fundraiser event. It was a happy hour event on U Street, which is really fun.
U Street.
Yeah.
I love U Street.
And I mean, I went to the fundraiser because it was like 4 blocks from my apartment. So I mean,
You had to.
kind of lazy. So
No, it was like, you have to come.
I know.
It meant a lot, and we raised $10,000
That's
Oh, wow.
for this campaign, and so it was really cool to put on my resume and on my LinkedIn profile that I raised $10,000 and led a group of interns do that for my organization.
Cool.
Don, what's like an example of what you did at your internship?
Yeah, so I was at the Treasury Department, and I was in their Office of Public Affairs, which follows the press and the media. And it was like the last 4 months of President Obama's term in office. And so I just remember that they were trying to like get a lot of things done. They were doing a lot of end of term memos and compiling all the things that they had done throughout the past 8 years, and trying to, put together a complete list of all of the accomplishments of the administration. So that was really exciting. But also, we were still trying to pursue certain policy agendas. And one of the agenda items it was business tax reform. And so they were trying to prevent corporate tax inversions. And so it was a lot of business tax jargon, but it was really heavy in the news at the time. And ironically, it was from that opportunity and that experience that I ultimately fell in love with tax law. And it seemed like everybody who I was around at the Treasury Department, they were all tax attorneys. And so that's what ultimately led me to go to law school and pursue tax law. And so that's, thankfully for WII, that's something that I stuck with and that I found. And after I finished law school at Howard, I'll be working as a tax attorney at a DC law firm. So literally the type of work that you do at WII can literally open the doors to your career, and it can lead you down a path that's very rewarding and very fruitful. So I'm very fortunate to have that experience.
So I'm going to segue from there since Don sort of set me up perfectly. So like, what about the rest of you in terms of like what you learned at your internship and how that affected what you think you might want to do for your career or are doing in your career?
I can go for that.
Good.
So I did RAIN, and I was part of the National Sexual Assault Hotline Management Team. So I learned a lot. So my internship was really unique because my supervisor got fired my second week.
Wow.
So I had to like essentially become her because everyone's overworked there. So I had to help out a lot with the volunteer program, and I learned through there that I'm a very like soft, quiet person, and I had to be like in charge of all these volunteers and lead them through training. So that really helped me see that like I can do that. Like I can be in a position where like I can teach people there. And then like how that directly goes into my field. So I actually work for RAIN now on the National Sexual Assault Online Hotline. And I'm going through a promotion stage right now. So crossing my fingers for
That's
that.
so cool.
Yeah. So I'm doing that, and then I realized that's like the population I want to work with when I go to law school.
Very cool.
Yeah.
For the rest of you, did it clarify anything? Did it sort of close off directions for you or open up new ones?
I think for me, it kind of made me realize that maybe potentially I wouldn't mind working in a courthouse or like in a law type setting.
Don't commit.
At first, I was like really intimidated by going into court, but like kind of like what Sarah said, I realized that I could do it, and it's not as scary or intimidating as you think it is, and it actually is pretty like it's not a boring environment, and I think at first I thought it would be boring. So
Awesome. So what I'm hearing a few times here is that it boosted your confidence. Any other sort of skills that you think you took away that maybe you didn't even expect that you would gain from it, or things that you maybe didn't recognize in yourself?
Yeah, for me, I found out that I'm really good at fundraising, which is a totally random thing, but I found that I'm really good at bringing people together for one common goal, and filling the gaps where needed. And I really didn't recognize that I was good at that, and so that's helped me. Like now, I work on a campaign for a guy running for Congress in Nashville, and so that it's really helped with that. Even though I worked for a nonprofit that worked towards building homes for orphaned and abandoned children, through that, like having a campaign for that helped me work on the campaign that I'm on now for politics.
Very cool.
I think for me, it was like, you're fine.
Chelsea, go ahead.
I think for me, it was more like when I first went in, I really wanted to go into law. I studied pre-law, like all undergrad. I was determined I was going to go to law school. And after my internship, kind of seeing the other ways that you could be involved in policy that didn't necessarily involve being a policymaker or being the person like in the courtroom defending, whoever, I think that I kind of got that nice different aspect. And even just talking to other WII students that were doing different things. There's a girl, Francesca, in my cohort that was doing graphic design for a nonprofit. And I guess that it just kind of opened my eyes to there's a lot of other ways that you can go about being successful and having different opportunities in DC that don't necessarily involve what you initially thought.
Mm-hmm. So for me, I learned about office politics and office culture.
Yes.
Like there's something you don't even think of, but so with office politics, there's like different, if you want to work with another department, there's So specifically with one of our departments, it's very specific the way you go. You have to go through the head. You can't go below the head because they take that very offensively. But then there's other departments where it's like, oh, okay, I want to do something. So you just go for it. And there's just a
And they're
whole
like, yeah,
different
fine.
culture about it.
Yeah, I think I had a similar experience. I had pretty much 3 supervisors in the Office of Education, and I was doing a couple of projects for one of them and a project for a different one. So I was constantly meeting with both and trying to like implement some of their ideas and take their feedback into consideration. But sometimes what one of my supervisors would say went like completely against what another one would tell me. And that was pretty frustrating at times. And it's hard not to take criticism personally, and we're all human and that can happen. But I found myself getting a lot better with just taking their feedback and just thinking about which supervisor, what feedback was coming from, and just kind of going ahead.
So I'm going to step in with another potential segue here. So that sounds like an issue that would be tailor-made to discuss in the internship seminar, which is one of the 2 classes.
I'm glad you brought it up.
I try. So what can you guys maybe talk a little bit about what the internship seminar was like in terms of helping you during your internship and then after?
Yeah, I know for me especially, we had Josh Levine, and he was so incredible, first of all. He was really hands-on in the way that he kind of, I don't want to say forced, but really made you get up there and do those interview questions and do those interview practices, even if you didn't necessarily want to, or you were too scared or too shy. He really created an environment where we were totally free to ask questions. And I remember vividly, and I probably still have the email somewhere, at one point I was so frustrated with the situation that was happening at my office that I emailed him outside of class. Like I just emailed him and I was like, I don't know who else to talk to about this. Like, this is what's happening. I don't know what I should do. And he sent me back like the longest email that was kind of like, hey, you know, just take a breath. Like, maybe you should talk to your supervisor and then you should do this and this. And it was like step by step, like, here's how you should go about this. And this is what you should consider when it comes to office politics and office roles. And having that kind of support when you're doing an internship for the first time in a new city where you don't know anybody is one of the reasons that I think WII is such an important program, because it can be really easy to get an internship somewhere, but there's a lot of questions that come with having an internship and being in an office space for the first time. And I think that WII does a really good job of filling that gap.
Like bouncing off of that, so the way we start every class, which was so helpful, is we go around and we talk about what we did in our internship that week, like the struggles that we went through, and if we had like any positive things. And I loved coming to class and hearing everyone like what they did that week. And then if something positive happened to you at your internship, like you could talk about it, because like you can't really talk about it with your friends back home because they don't understand it. And so it was really great.
Yeah.
And if you had issues, then you would talk about it in class and you could bounce ideas off other people who are experiencing the same thing. So that was just super helpful and like super motivating.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, you can go.
That's good. I think for me, it was honestly probably the most helpful and like beneficial class I've ever taken, because beforehand, like I didn't know how to network. I didn't know how to like really set up a resume. I would just like Google a resume template and kind of like hope that's how it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Or like LinkedIn and all that stuff.
Me too.
And it's really helpful. And then like Sarah said, I really enjoyed just hearing other people's internship experience. And then the professor Josh was really, really helpful. And I really liked how we repeatedly did mock interviews, because I feel like for a lot of people, including me, that's something that really intimidated me. But once after my experience in DC, I feel much more confident going into interviews. So I think having that class is really important and helpful.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Another one of the things that Josh really encouraged us to do was informational interviews. And I remember I was terrified at first. I had never networked. I had never done an interview like that. And I ended up getting connected with a number of alumni from my school that live and work in DC, and I ended up meeting with almost all of them. And that was one of the best things that I did for myself last summer, I think, because now I have like those connections still if I ever decide to like go back to the area and maybe work there. But it also really just strengthened my skill set in terms of interviewing and having conversations with strangers.
So Brittany, we actually have a question from a student from Roger Williams who asked where you went to plan your internship. So can you maybe talk a little bit just briefly about what the experience was like at Roger Williams and how you started off and then how you got passed to us essentially?
Sure. So at Roger Williams, Washington Internship Institute, it's kind of like headed by the political science department, since I guess like in the past, primarily political science majors have participated in the major, but anyone can. So I first spoke with June Speakman, and I believe she's on the board with you guys.
Yep.
And so she's really, really helpful and knows all the ins and outs. And then she was kind of like the middle person between like the program and the criminal justice department. And she kind of just like checked with them to make sure like my classes would come back as credit and that I would be able to like fully get credit for everything. So I basically, or like primarily just met with her, and she was just really, really helpful.
And that's just for the audience out there, that's typically how it works. We have a liaison on each campus that sort of acts as the go-between between us and the student. So they're there to answer questions that maybe specifically have to do with things that happen on that campus. And then they pass the information along to us or also serve to ask questions of us as well on behalf of the student. So I don't want to keep you guys forever, but I have one last question. And it even applies to Dawn in this state of the world that we're in. What's one thing that you really miss about DC?
Ooh, everything.
Really?
I say the people.
Oh.
Like there's just like there's so many people and so many different types of people, and just like being able to go from one side of the city to the other, like using the metro. Like I never thought I'd miss the metro, but I do.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing I miss about DC is that I love the environment there, where if you want to tell someone that you want to like run for Congress, if you want to tell them I want to work for the FBI, they're like, okay, I know someone, so you can go talk to them. You're like, usually if you're at home, they're like, okay, good luck. Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I miss Compass Coffee.
Yeah,
my God.
Compass Coffee.
The Compass in my building is still open from 8 to 2 every day, so I'm still
Oh my gosh.
Sophia and I went like every day.
Every day.
Yeah, I would go every day too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don, what do you love about DC since you hung around?
Yeah, I mean, I still love DC. It's a really exciting, active, vibrant place. But I was thinking about, what I miss about DC, and that is being a student, having free time, interning from 9 to 5 with a group of other students. Because, I mean, DC is so exciting when you're a student in WII. I mean, once everybody's done with work, especially on a weekend, the whole group of us, all of us who lived in the Paramount apartments, we'd all go out and explore on Fridays, and Saturdays we'd wake up really early and explore. And then on Sundays, my roommates and I, we would go shopping, and then we would do more exploring. And so I really miss having the time and freedom to just explore, to have a good time, to build relationships, take pictures, and just really just soak up DC, because there's so much here to offer. And even though I live here now, I still haven't seen everything on my list. So WII is a perfect time for that.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. That was a tight half hour. So thank you to all of our alumni who participated. You guys are awesome. I miss you. I hope at some point you can come back to DC, or Dawn, I'll run into you on the street when we're allowed to.
I live there already. It's fine. We can all go to
Chelsea.
Compass. We'll go to Compass
Right,
together,
yeah.
all of us.
Okay. All right, Eighth and you. I'll buy you coffee tomorrow. Anyway, but to everybody else, thank you so much. It was great to see you all, and again, thanks for doing this. Hopefully we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.